John Edward Jones, the Nutty Putty Cave. In November 2009, John Edward Jones entered the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah. He was an experienced caver, but he relied on a map from his childhood. He entered a passage he believed to be the birth canal, but he had actually drifted into an unmapped, uncharted, and incredibly tight fissure. He crawled head-first into a crevice only 10 by 18 inches wide. Gravity pulled him further down until he became wedged, his body pinned at an awkward inverted angle. Rescuers tried for over 24 hours to pull him out, but the geometry of the rock made extraction impossible. He passed away still trapped inside. His story became a global warning: never rely on outdated memories to navigate a cave, and never push into a crawl space that is not verified as safe. Floyd Cullen's Sand Cave, 1925. Floyd Cullen's was a professional cave explorer in Kentucky. In 1925, he was searching for a new entrance to the famous Mammoth Cave system. While navigating a tight, narrow passage alone, a large boulder shifted and pinned his left leg. He was trapped 55 feet below the surface. Because he was exploring solo and had not told anyone exactly where he was, it took hours for searchers to find him. By the time they did, the passage had become too unstable to safely extract him. The ensuing rescue attempt became one of the first major media sensations in American history, with reporters covering every moment. Despite the massive effort, he died after 14 days of being trapped. His death eventually led to major reforms in how cave exploration and search and rescue operations were handled. The Mossdale Caverns Tragedy, 1967. The Yorkshire Dales in the UK contained the Mossdale Caverns, a system that functions like a natural drain for the moors above. In 1967, a group of 10 experienced cavers entered the system. While they were deep underground, a sudden intense rainstorm hit the surface. Because the cave acts as a hydraulic funnel, the water levels rose almost instantly. 6 of the 10 cavers were trapped in a distant chamber and could not escape the rising water. This event served as a permanent, grim reminder of the connection between surface weather and subterranean safety. It proved that no amount of technical skill can protect you if you fail to account for the hydraulic conditions on the surface. The Mount Gambier diving disaster, 1973. The shaft in Mount Gambier, Australia, is a famous water-filled limestone sinkhole. In 1973, a group of 8 experienced divers entered the site. They were operating in zero visibility conditions, a silt-out, where the water becomes completely opaque. They failed to follow the most critical rule of cave diving, the use of a continuous, permanent guide line back to the exit. Without that line, they became completely disoriented, unable to distinguish between the ceiling and the floor. All 8 perished. It remains one of the most cited examples of groupthink and the catastrophic danger of ignoring established safety protocols in high-risk environments. Neil Moss, Peak Cavern, 1959. Neil Moss was a passionate caver who, in 1959, entered a narrow vertical chimney in the Peak District of England. He pushed deep into a passage that quickly narrowed beyond the physical dimensions of his body. As he wedged himself into the gap, he realized he could not move forward or backward. Because the rescue technology of the time was primitive, and because the cave was so narrow, rescuers were unable to reach him effectively. He died in the dark as oxygen levels began to drop. His death was a catalyst for the formation of the modern British Cave Rescue Council, as it highlighted that the world was entirely unprepared to save people from deep, narrow subterranean traps. The amateur mine explorer phenomenon. Beyond famous cases, there is an ongoing preventable pattern of deaths involving amateurs entering abandoned mines or gated caves. These individuals frequently enter these environments without a flight plan, a notification left with a trusted person on the surface. They often carry only one light source, which, if it fails, leaves them in absolute lethal darkness. They ignore warning signs and climb past safety gates, often entering areas where black damp, an oxygen-deficient atmosphere, can render a person unconscious in seconds. These deaths are the most avoidable, as they are not the result of a freak accident, but the result of treating a dangerous industrial or geological hazard as a recreational playground. Peter Verhersel, The Sternfontein Caves, 1984. In 1984, Peter Verhersel was part of a group diving in the Sternfontein Caves. Cave diving has one absolute, unbreakable rule: never leave the safety guide line that leads back to the exit. Verhersel, an experienced open-water diver, but overly confident, decided to ignore this rule. He unclipped from the main line to explore a side passage, assuming he could easily find his way back. Instead, he became hopelessly lost in a pitch-black underwater labyrinth. When his air ran out, he miraculously found a small, isolated air bell. He survived in total darkness for weeks, waiting for a rescue that couldn't find him in time. Eventually, he succumbed to starvation and exhaustion. His tragic death is a haunting reminder that in a cave, the guideline is not just a tool, it is your only tether to the living world. Breaking that connection is a fatal miscalculation.
The Rescue Mission, Dave Shaw, 2004. Finally, we look to the underwater depths of Boesman's Gut, South Africa. In 2004, world-renowned diver Dave Shaw made a grim discovery: the body of Dilion Dreyer, a diver who had perished there 10 years prior. Driven by a sense of duty, Shaw returned to bring him home. It was a mission that defied safety limits. At 270 meters deep, Shaw successfully located the remains, but as he worked to untangle the body, his own guidelines became snared. His helmet camera captured his final frantic struggle against the dark water. Months later, when his body was recovered, they found Shaw and Dreyer together, two explorers bound by the water that claimed them both. These aren't just statistics. They were fathers, sons, and pioneers who faced the raw reality of the underground. Their stories remind us that in the deepest parts of this world, nature is the only thing that gets the final word. The Tragedy of Edward Joe, 1990. In 1990, an experienced caver named Edward Joe was exploring a narrow vertical chimney in a remote cave. While maneuvering, he lost his footing and slid into a wedge, trapping his chest and shoulders against jagged rock. His team reached him within an hour, but it was a nightmare scenario. Every time they tried to pull him free, the loose gravel shifted, packing even tighter around his body, constricting his breathing. For 12 agonizing hours, his friends worked in the freezing darkness, fighting to move the rock by hand without causing a full collapse. As they neared a breakthrough, the physical toll and lack of air took its final toll. He died from positional asphyxia. The cave's structural instability made recovery impossible, and the entrance was permanently sealed. Edward was never brought out, he remains there still, a part of the mountain forever. Nature doesn't always offer a second chance. Sometimes it keeps what it claims.
Want to know more about how to survive the unknown? Hit like and subscribe to join the community. And tell me, which of these mistakes is the most dangerous?